PH Momag.
We're here with the mayor of Pleasant Hill. I'm so excited. This is our very first video podcast for phmomag.com, if you want to go check it out. And we're doing everything Pleasant Hill. And I thought, what an opportunity to start with the mayor.
Well, I appreciate it.
I wanted to get to know the mayor. Now, I know you a little bit. We went through COVID together. I owned the newspaper and you were on the council.
Right.
What a trip.
Yeah.
What a trip. And I really felt like when I came in, I mean, I was on a huge learning curve, right? And then COVID hits and it's like, okay, that learning curve just went.
Absolutely.
And I know it was a learning curve for you guys as well.
Right.
Right.
It was. Everything was new.
Mm-hmm. And you were also, are you a fire chief or a fireman?
I'm an assistant chief with the fire department over in Raymore.
In Raymore, okay. Actually, I have a neighbor who's Ryan, who is a fireman up there. Okay. He always mentions you. He says, or not always, but you know what I'm saying. He speaks highly of you as a fireman. Yes. So it's nice that good news is going around about you, you know, because, you know, you're assistant fire chief there. Mm-hmm. And so what role is that?
So now I'm the training chief. So I'm in charge of training for 50 plus people.
Okay.
All of our records, I do our training or arrange for our training. Mm-hmm. Been doing that for 8 years now.
8 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long have you been serving on council and mayor, both, like together?
So I started in August of 2016. I filled what was left on CJ Hicks's term on council when he became mayor. Said I would never be mayor. Said I would probably only do maybe 1 or 2 terms at the most.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, right after COVID, I became mayor.
Yeah. Mark left.
Yep. Mark left. He moved out of the city.
Yeah.
Into the county.
So what made you step up?
I just wanted to see the continuation of what we'd already started.
Which was?
And just all the projects to try to get the city, I mean, today we're seeing the fruits of that work finally. Just trying to get us where we can be, I don't want to say ahead of the curve, but out in front of things instead of always working from behind. Mm. Pleasant Hill has never really had what I call a great budget. It's just, you're not going to get a bigger budget unless you raise taxes. That's what it is. We rely on sales tax and property tax, and for too many years, it was about trying to fix things to get us through until something big happened. And it kind of became, everybody was waiting for that one big thing that would happen that would solve our money problems. And eventually you just have to figure it out. You can't wait for one big thing. You have to figure it out and, just trying to get ahead of stuff. And the water system has been a problem for more than 3 years. It is a complex problem.
Yeah.
And, I get it. Taxpayers don't want to hear it takes time. They don't want to hear problems. They want to hear solutions.
Right.
But
I can see that you're overwhelmed with that.
It can be at times.
Yeah.
We had the 2022, we had one in October. We had a major break downtown.
Yeah.
And then the next year, it was on the 4th of July. And that was a different problem. That was pumps.
I see that you're getting new ones.
We are. We're replacing the pumps. And that's kind of where I was going to with it is it's a process. We've really gotten with technology to try to solve some of these problems. We do satellite imagery that can pick up where leaks are at.
Really?
Yes. We get satellite pictures and it shows us here is a hot spot where you have a leak, and it may not be
in the ground.
Yes. It picks up the water
That's
in the ground.
cool.
Yep. I don't know all the science behind it,
I know.
but
I want to know though.
and part of that is, and again, people dislike when they hear that, is a lot of the breaks we found were on between the meter and the house. So it's getting with those residents, hey, you do have a water leak. It's probably why your bill's a little high. And trying to, that's just leakage into the ground that somebody's paying for.
Yeah.
And then it became, we need to reline pipes. And, I think a lot of people, even I at one point was like, oh, well, it's the old part of town, 100-plus-year-old pipes in the ground. As I always joke, we have antiques under our streets.
Yes, we do. It is an old town.
But it really isn't where the majority of our problems are. It's in that 1980s, 1990s where we have pipes that are corroding. And I think a lot of that is to do with the clay in the ground. It's corrosive. So we're going through some water relining. Well, several things have to happen. You have to fix the water tower. It needed to be refurbished. And, we used a different revenue bond that we had ready for that. Pumps, you got to get the pumps in the system. Well, you can't do the water tower because to fix the water tower, you have to empty it. So your pumps have to be working.
Yeah.
So
One thing leads to another, leads to another.
You've got to get the pumps. So
Yep.
we're about done with that and having redundancies built into that. $10 million revenue bond. And that is a drop in the bucket of what we need to do.
Yeah.
A lot of that's going to go towards the sewer system as well.
Yeah.
But
So what are you going to do with the sewer? I mean, how are you going to fix it? Are you going to
a lot of it. So the relining project we do now, it goes in and we can reline water lines and do different things. It's just getting those updates in the systems and getting the sewer pumps and water pumps, everything refurbished so that we can get the system working and reduce the leakage that there is. And, I feel like, knock on wood, we're starting to make progress.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, if you drive down 7 Highway, you're going to see MoDOT tearing out and putting in new sidewalks, and you'll see the pipe. There's a pipe running on top of the ground.
Right.
This company comes in, they connect the water system with an above ground pipe so that they can go in and make repairs and reline and not interrupt people's water.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is going to be looping the system so we can shut a valve here and not shut people's water off when we're making a repair.
Yeah.
Because we can get water from a different side of the line.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So it's coming. I don't want to say there won't be leaks because there will be.
What's your biggest complaint about it? Like, what's the biggest one that people will have?
I think it's, especially when you had like wintertime.
Yeah.
It gets cold, the ground shifts, you get a lot of breaks. And I think people see a break and they're like, well, they just had a break here. Did they not fix it?
Yeah.
And it's a break here. Now we repair and strengthen this piece of pipe.
Yeah.
Which now makes the pressure on another spot that's weak. And so you're chasing these weak spots. And it just takes time.
And that's their complaint?
I think so.
Their complaint is the waiting for it to happen, or?
I think that it's just, it doesn't happen quick enough that we're trying to get the water system fixed. And, nobody likes paying taxes. Nobody likes paying for a water bill. And, we get our water from Kansas City.
Okay.
So and then we have Middle Blue Sewer System who does our sewers. And when they raise the rates, we have to raise our rates. It's just how that works.
Right. You mean like the water bill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
we're
I
not
get
even
it.
in the city and we're paying more on water.
And
we're just from Lee Summit, so.
I get it.
Yeah.
And it's just, finding a way that we can get all these things done and limit that impact on people, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be some kind of rate raises at some point. It's going to happen. Things get more expensive.
Yeah. So what's the timeline, do you think, on the kind of making the bleeding stop on the pipes?
I think probably over the next 2 years, we'll have a better grasp on it.
Okay.
There's still going to be problems.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get these things so that the problems don't impact as many people or for as long, not have boil orders. Being able to, Tony Bakken, the public works director, has spent a lot of time mapping out the water system. Mm-hmm. One thing we have found over the years is The map says the water line is here, but it's not.
Oh,
It's a couple feet over.
oh,
But when you're digging a hole,
yeah, that's a big deal.
that's a big
A
deal.
lot of money too.
Yes. And,
Yeah.
it shows that it's going under a sidewalk. So we rip out a sidewalk and
Then you have
then
to
we
replace
find out
that.
it's 3 feet over.
Yeah.
And it's just the camera systems and the inspection systems to be able to see where things are, getting ahead on the valves, knowing where all the valves are so we can shut them off quicker, alerting systems so that we get alerts when there's a problem instead of getting it later
Yeah.
that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And all those things help.
What are some things that you feel like the city could do better?
So, one of the things that we've worked on the last couple of years is our communications with residents. I think that's ever improving.
Yeah.
We're new into technology of recording our council meetings.
Yay.
We've already had one problem.
Oh,
We had a couple. One, the voice thing was hard to hear.
yeah.
The other one was the drive that collected it only did 13 minutes of the meeting.
Oh, but we've had that problem before.
Yes. Technology has gotten the better of
This
us.
is why he's over there, making sure it's still running.
So, it's getting that. And right now it's recording and just getting people so that they will, watch those things so they can have questions answered, getting people engaged.
Excellent.
I think that is so important, is for the community to be engaged and ask questions.
Well, and this is a bedroom town. And if a good part of the town works outside the town, they don't get home in time to go to the council meetings. I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't know how many people will watch, but probably a good portion of, that we didn't realize would,
Right.
be
But
engaged.
it comes down to, I tell people all the time, nobody stops me at the grocery store and tells
Yeah.
me how great things are. Nobody does. And
Yeah.
and I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
so many things, we pay taxes on so many levels, and local government is here. You have access to it. It's
Yeah.
not like somebody in Jeff City or in Washington, D.C. And so when people get frustrated, they want to vent, and they'll come up to you and talk to you. And I find that a lot of times when you sit down and talk to people, that they then at least know that somebody's listening.
Yeah.
And I think that's a frustration point for
Yeah.
people. And, one of the things this town has gone through is we've had such a shift. There is probably more people that live in this community now that didn't grow up here. And so you have people that are born and raised here, and you have people that have moved here. People that have moved here, they move here from Blue Springs, Lee Summit,
California,
Yes.
Philadelphia. Yeah.
And, they're used to a city where they have access to everything 24 hours a day.
Right.
And that's not who Pleasant Hill is.
No.
And so you have that push from people that want those things, and you have people that don't. And it's really just trying to find that balance. And that is hard to do.
Yeah. We're a bedroom town.
Yep.
I mean, we just are. And it's like Greenwood a little bit. I mean, we're kind of like Greenwood, and we don't have a lot of industry.
Nope.
And so taxes are going to be high because of that.
And,
I mean,
people that want those bigger things, the only way that happens is if 7 Highway becomes 4 or 5 lanes all the way through, like a Blue Springs. And that's not going to happen anytime soon because we don't control that. That's MoDOT that does that.
Yeah.
But that'll come either Harrisonville North or
Yeah.
50 Highway South.
Well, it was widened since I've lived here in the last 30 years. I mean, it went from a 2-lane to got a middle lane, which I really loved because you could
Except
not
when
turn.
people use it as a lane.
Right. Well, people will be people, right?
Right.
Let's talk about downtown.
Okay.
Okay. During COVID, oh my goodness, the downtown started to really bubble up. I mean, I found that with the paper here, right? So the excitement is there, right? We have quite a few new things down here. We also have, I believe, there's the beer contest, you know, beer tasting you got the St. Patty's thing that you guys had started.
Shamrock Shimmy.
Shamrock Shimmy. So there's some things going on downtown. So what do you see as a city? Where do you want it to go? What's your vision, John?
You know, it's a couple things happening with the downtown. Just trying to get investment. And that's not just a business, you know, it can be people that invest in buying a building and refurbishing it, which we have a couple projects going on. These are old buildings.
This one's one.
You know, I was so fortunate that we had some citizens that purchased the Western Auto building and began work on it because, you know, we were looking at it could be upwards of $250,000 to keep that building from falling over.
Just falling over, yeah.
And, you know, you have a lot of people that it's the Western Auto building. They remember getting Christmas presents and going there, and people want that saved, you know, but if nobody buys it as a city, can you invest $250,000 in a building that you may not get your returns on?
Right.
You can save it, and if it had asbestos and you had to do different things, you know, you could spend almost $500,000 for a building that's not going to sell for that much.
I always said if there was 3, I don't know why, magic number for me is 3 really good restaurants down here. It would blow this town out of the water. I just think it would. I think just having the Wyoming Wine Street, that one, I mean, when it came in, there was hardly anything down here. We got Big Creek going, right? I miss Neighbors. I don't know why I miss Neighbors, but I do. They had good chicken. But I don't know, just 3 really thriving.
I miss Grits and Grace.
I loved Grits.
That was my Saturday morning go-to.
Oh my goodness, I miss her. I miss her and I miss her food, right? Oh, she had the best grits.
So it doesn't help downtown in this respect, but so once the Price Chopper project up on 7 Highway gets started, probably...
And explain that, because not everybody's going to know what that is.
So Constantino's Price Chopper, through Cadence, they're the developer. They are going to build a new, updated Price Chopper up by the intermediate school.
Oh, okay. Is it going to be on the other side of it?
Yeah, it'll be on
or in front of it?
Northeast corner.
Okay.
Of 163rd and 7. Right now, they're still going through their stuff with land, land stuff.
Right side?
So as you're going downtown, it'll be on the right side.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
North of the intermediate.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll be a full-size Price Chopper. I mean, bigger than we have now, deli, pharmacy, all those kind of things. And it will have 5 pad sites. Cadence Constantino has businesses that they work with. So
we're getting a great clips.
I don't know what they'll be. If you look at other ones, Springs is one.
That's why I said that. Yeah.
I imagine there
Orthodontist.
will be some restaurants in there.
Okay.
Talking with them, a great clips. A orthodontist isn't what they really want. They really like putting restaurants, service things there. So, I mean, we'll probably get a couple of restaurants.
I
know. If you look at what he's got, I know they do a lot with First Watch. They have one of those.
Oh, I love First Watch. You think we could get a First Watch? Really? I don't know. They might be too, I don't know, 9,000 people. Do you think they could support a First Watch?
I think so.
You think so?
Get restaurants in town and get some variety.
That would be cool, though.
I know, get some variety. But I always tell people, too, be careful what you wish for.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's going to put a crimp on other businesses. And the example I use is if CVS builds in town, Pleasant Hill Drug's not going to be able to compete with them. So, you have to be careful in your economic development. You don't want to just develop just to develop. You want smart growth. We're not going to get big box stores.
Well, CVS, if you get a CVS, that's kind of a big box.
I don't think we're
You're gonna not get a CVS. I was just curious. I thought maybe.
But they will. Constantino's will backfill their current building. because
Backfill, like
they'll
rent it
find
out.
somebody that,
Okay.
um,
I'm
and I
thinking,
know they've already had interest in that building from some other places. And
nice. What do you think we'll
um,
get?
I
Any
have no idea.
guesses?
They don't
No
tell
guess? A
you.
bowling alley?
No, I doubt it's a bowling alley. Again, it's going to be a business.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
when I was talking about down here, and First Watch that's pretty big. I mean,
right.
I'm talking about something mom and pop-ish, you
That's what
know.
this will be down here
Yeah.
is,
Kind of classy, but mom and pop-ish.
right.
Yeah.
And also getting stability
Yeah.
downtown and,
A good Irish
getting,
pub would go down
we're
great down here.
getting a cigar bar up on the other
There you
side
go. There
of
you
there.
go.
We
Cigar
said for a long
bar.
time if we could get a cigar and bourbon bar.
Oh, well, I think you can bring your own bourbon.
There we go.
I think that's the idea. I mean, that's what I was told is that you can smoke there or not, or you bring your own stuff.
So when I was in Columbus,
BYOP.
when my son was stationed at Fort Benning, we went and it's near Columbus, Georgia. We went to a bourbon and cigar bar there.
Did you really?
And I was amazed at the number of women that smoke cigars in that place.
Really?
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
I bet
There's
half
no
the place was
way.
female smoking cigars. I couldn't believe it.
No way.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I can't see my mom smoking a cigar. No. Oh, that'd be funny though.
But
Yeah.
downtown, we're always going to have that ebb and flow downtown of businesses. I always encourage people when they want to start a business to talk with the banks about their business plan
Okay.
because you have a lot of people that have really good ideas
Yeah.
about a business,
Yeah.
but they don't understand business plans
Yeah.
and the finance part. And you're asking people to put everything, as you know, on the line
Yeah.
to have a business. And
Yeah.
they're putting homes on the line and everything else.
Yeah.
And, that's asking a lot. So one of the things that we're working on, probably start seeing over the next year is wayfinding signage around town.
Okay.
Getting more like we're redoing the parking lot over here off 2nd Street. We're going to redo that parking
I
lot.
wanted to ask you about that, John.
Yes, we're going to pave it. And
You are going to pave
Yes.
it. So we're already having water problems back there.
right. So before we can do that, it goes to the engineers
Okay.
who do all the stormwater calculations.
I'm just thinking, whoosh.
Like we're already probably going to lose 1 or 2 parking spots that we have now there. So they have calculations based on how much blacktop you have or concrete you have.
Yeah.
Because that's water runoff.
Yeah.
And so the storm drains, things like that have to be in place or however the water goes. So in this part
Yeah.
of town, you don't have a lot of storm drains. You don't have a lot of curbs. That's because the water is intended to go into yards, ditches, and be soaked up by the ground.
Okay.
But over time, people fill in ditches or they make changes and that changes where the water goes.
That's a rural issue, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the way this part of town was designed when it was built, was for runoff, was to the ground to absorb it. So one of the changes that's occurred over the years is a lot of people don't realize it. Here on 1st Street, on the other side of the street, at one time, there was drainage that ran underneath all of those buildings.
No.
Well, as people have redone buildings and put new flooring down, new concrete down, it doesn't drain under the buildings, it goes around the buildings. So that creates problems.
It went under the buildings?
Yep.
How did it go under the buildings?
So if you look, there's vents on the underneath side of the building. And the water went through, and it just flowed under the building and went down and drained out somewhere else.
Houses were like that.
Yes.
We owned the house on Jeffries, the brick house, old 1860s, and it had that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that's where the water was.
That's where the water was supposed to go. And so now how are you going to remedy that?
Again, that's what we pay engineers for.
Everybody get a shovel.
Yeah. It's just really working. So like I said, Tony has the camera system for public works.
Okay.
And a lot of that is now looking at the stormwater drainage systems and things like that. Is water not flowing properly through it? Do we have backups in places or is it collapsed?
Yeah.
And we need to fix it. And, that all goes into just making those repairs and getting it so we have better flow of water and getting it to the creeks and they dredged Big Creek. I don't know how long ago. And
Right,
that
I
took care
remember that. Yeah.
of a lot of our flooding
Yeah,
problems. But
huge. And then they did the bridge.
yep.
Yeah.
So that takes care of some of it, but
We still
eventually it
pools
has to be
down.
done again.
It
Oh,
pools down here.
right.
Yeah.
Down here at the end of First Street.
So what do you do about stuff like that?
I can pawn that one off. That's a MoDOT problem.
Oh.
We need to get them to do it because so commercial and that intersection is a MoDOT intersection because that's 58. They're the ones that did the stop sign down there and did that work. They don't allow us just to do stuff like that. So like, as I'm sure you're aware, driving up 7 Highway, the manholes were a problem.
No, I didn't notice that because I don't. Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm over here, so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
when they
did see
came
the
in and
complaints in the
when they
yeah.
resurfaced, manholes raising was supposed to be part of that.
Okay,
But with MoDOT, that's the last thing they do.
and they didn't.
And well, that project's still ongoing because it goes from Harrisonville north to whatever. But they allowed us to do that raising.
Okay.
Well, then when we bought the risers to do it, it wasn't quite enough, and we had to do some resurfacing there. But you can't just mess with MoDOT stuff. They are very, very touchy with
It's their
that.
stuff. Yeah.
I had been talking with the county about another project, and
Can you share?
Yeah, well, we were talking about some regrading of a road,
Oh, all right.
and that they were saying that when their crews were out, they used to fix that apron to 58 Highway. They would just make sure that the gravel came up and you didn't have that big lip drop off. And they got a letter from MoDOT that told them to stop doing that. That was MoDOT's responsibility, not theirs. And I'm like,
There you go.
okay.
Yeah, hands off.
So
Your turf.
they're not hard to work with, but you
Yeah.
just have to go through their processes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes a little bit of time. So,
I had a question too.
okay.
I don't know if anybody else is interested, but I'm kind of curious. I was looking at the budget stuff.
Okay.
And budget stuff. Okay. The pool, the swimming pool. I'm just curious. You hired this company, not you, but
Right.
y'all hired this company. $146,600. What do they do for that much money? And how can I get that job?
So we are working towards taking over management of that ourselves again. So first thing I tell everybody is public pools, municipal pools don't make money.
No.
They take money.
Yeah.
Every city during COVID loved the fact that they closed their pools because it wasn't a drain on their budget.
Oh.
They were like, we're not going to be
Why do we have a
There's
pool if it's a drain on the budget?
it's a public amenity that
Everybody
people want,
wanted?
but it's like when they tell you when you buy a boat, it's never going to be worth what you paid for it. It's just one of those things.
It's just a perk.
So the management company, one of the things that benefits us is they manage, getting the chemicals and stuff like that for us.
Yeah.
And they do it for all the cities they manage.
Okay.
Pools. So you get it at a little bit of a discount.
But
in
100,
doing
what
that.
do they do?
So they basically do the hiring and staffing of the pools with lifeguards.
Okay.
So
Is that
they do
part-
the training of the lifeguards.
Do you pay them outside of this 146 of the lifeguards?
That's what
Covers the lifeguards
Yes.
too? Oh, gotcha. Well, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah.
And if there's a shortage here of lifeguards for a day,
Yeah.
they pull them from other cities.
Oh, okay. To make
So
sure
we
they're
always have
covered.
that. Now, our plan has been to go back to doing it ourselves. I think we probably save money on that end in the long run, but it just hasn't been right to do that yet. And we were hoping this year, and
You guys have a lot of coals in the fire at this point.
we do, and we were probably in a good place to do it. And then our parks director, who I loved having him,
Oh.
he had an opportunity. So we got him here. He used to managed war monuments and battlefields in Europe and wanted to move his family back here. He liked Pleasant Hill, wanted to move his family here.
Yeah.
And he got an opportunity to move his family back to France for a year. So he took it.
It's like, yeah.
So then we were hiring another parks director,
Wow.
and it just trying to get
Who is
the
it?
pool. Jeff Hull is the
Okay.
is the new parks director.
Jeff Hull, Hull.
Yep.
Which one?
Local person. You know, another thing we run into all the time. People like us to have local people in city
Yes.
jobs.
Yeah.
Well, what that means is we know everybody.
Yeah.
And so then people start complaining about, well, but they know people here and they know people there. And do they get favoritism? Well,
Yeah.
this is what happens when you hire local.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
But he's been great. I feel
Is he local? I guess he's local.
Yes,
All right.
he's local.
Well, he must be that
Another born and raised here. Another born and raised here.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't right this year to make that move to do it ourselves again. But it is something that we want to do.
Election's coming up.
Yeah, we have one here in a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah. So what's on the ballot? I know there's a couple council at large.
Precinct 20 is Augie Augsburg's spot, and Marla Largent and Brenda Doomer are running in that spot.
Okay.
Nobody's running against Pat Niner.
Yeah,
So
good old Pat Niner. She wins.
that's the only thing we got on this ballot.
That's it?
Yes.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Well, so go vote.
School
vote
district.
for Pat Niner.
School district has things.
I can say that because she's the only one on the ballot for that.
So, you know.
What'd you just say about the schools?
Schools, they have a thing on there.
Do they? I don't know what they have on there. Probably a bond or something.
A bond issue.
Yeah. They're always having a bond issue.
You know, that's so school districts they do personal property tax. They don't collect sales tax. So bond issues are how they build everything.
Well, right. But it's always a bond issue usually.
And, you know, that's one of those things we've run into it too, is everybody likes to say a no tax increase bond. And that's because it doesn't increase your taxes, but it carries the debt on for another.
You're just saying, hey, I want to borrow this again. But, you know, when I first came out in the paper, I learned a lot about all of the bond stuff and everything. I didn't pay attention to that before. It's like most people, I think, are just who cares, right? But then there are the pool of people who really pay attention. And I had to all of a sudden pay attention. And bond and taxes to me still go hand in hand. It's not that you're raising the current taxes. It's just that if you don't pass the bond, you could potentially lower the tax.
You can.
So it's still a tax.
It is. You're continuing
a tax. You know, the question of the day is this a necessity? Is this something you're wanting to invest in and have the bond to do it? I mean, we all have mortgages, you know, we all have car, you know, debt, you know, not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. So I always like to take a look at it less as a, you know, taxes as much as is this pertinent? Do we need it? And can we afford it in taxes? Right. I think what's hard is when you're going through a financial, economic dip like we have been, and then all of a sudden you have tax hikes. It's like, okay, we can't eat, you know, barely eat, and now we're, you know, raising taxes. I think that's when it gets hard. And in this season, this is probably what the push and pull is going to be with people. You know, I'm neither high. I probably am here or there with it, depending on the issue, but some people, I think, are just like knee jerk. Oh no more money. Don't you feel that?
They are.
You know,
and there are times when it's right to let a general obligation bond run out and do it. The thing is, though, if down the road you need to borrow to build, do whatever, and you go back out, well, you may have to bring it back at a higher rate. Right. Than you would have just had continued. Oh,
you mean if you continue the bond, you get it at...
You get to stay at whatever rate
that I didn't know.
Right.
That's interesting.
But, you know, so the bonds go out to sell, but it's part of the debt service.
Okay.
And you may have to do that bond later on, get a new one. You may have to raise debt service.
The bond? A bank?
So they're investors.
Okay.
What they do is all these general obligation bonds, it's just people investing. And you go through investment companies, and there's huge markets out there for them, and people just buy they buy it and invest in it. Yeah. The difference is then with revenue bonds, like water systems are revenue bonds because they're backed by the revenues of collecting water sewer rates. That's what backs that.
Interesting.
So people ask us all the time, what about borrowing, getting money from the government to work on the water system?
Or like a grant.
Yeah, well, not grants, but any kind of government, federal loans and stuff like that to help do
Oh, I
infrastructure.
see.
What we found out was, and I know people they can't believe this is to be true, but we would have to double our water rate to be eligible
Oh,
for those federal funds. And
ouch.
I don't want $300 water bills.
Yeah. No.
I don't want $400 water
No.
bills. So I'm not going to do that to people. I don't want to pay that.
No.
But I get it, man. It seems like every time you turn around, they're raising taxes. Well, one of the things as a city that we fear is everybody talks about doing away with personal property tax. That sounds great. That's one tax. I not have to pay personal property tax. Well, their answer to that is you raise other taxes because you have to fill that void with something. And so if you look at areas that don't
How much in personal property tax, like the rate, how much does the city get? Because I know a lot goes to schools.
It does. You ask me something I don't have in front of me.
I was just
I don't know
curious.
what it is. I don't know what it
I
is.
don't think it's big.
It's not.
Yeah.
Schools are always the highest
Yeah.
because they don't do any kind of sales tax. Then generally you have fire districts and cities are pretty close in it. So on your tax receipt, you'll have county road and bridge, schools, fire district, city. There's others. I think the county workshop is on there and different stuff. 911 is on there for the whole county. So you have all those things on there, and I don't remember what it is. I knew you'd ask me something I don't have in front of me. So when you see me and I'm walking around, I always have these laminated cards in front of me. They have those numbers on them because people ask me, and I like to know what they have them, and I can't memorize.
You're not around it like all day long. You're not
right.
Full time.
But if you look at areas that don't have personal property tax, they're paying 14, 15% sales tax.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
And somebody explained it to me, and it made all the sense to me. I was like, but it could be sales tax, get rid of the personal property tax. And personal property tax is something that you can decide sort of how much you want to pay by. If you want to lower your personal property tax, if it's vehicles, instead of having 2 cars, you have 1 car. Instead of having 2 cars and a UTV and a boat and 2 jet skis, you get rid of things to lower that bill.
Yes.
You can buy a house and stay within your budget and decide, what that personal property tax.
Well,
the thing people can't do is when they go to the store and have to buy stuff for home, they have to pay sales tax.
Yes.
And so it's not a luxury tax. That's
I see what you're saying.
Everybody has to pay.
Right.
So is it better to have property tax and a lower sales tax, or have a higher sales tax that people that are struggling?
Well, my question is, it's like, okay, let me explain it this way. My grandma was a real estate agent, and she said, she used to say, we need as real estate agents to get a raise, so instead of 3%, we should get 5% or whatever. And I'm like, but you are getting whatever house you sell. Like if you sell a $300,000 house, you're still getting the same percentage. So if houses go up in value, you are getting a raise. So if the tax is 1%, and then the next year everybody's income goes up, that is a raise because you're collecting more. Right. So I guess that's just been a question in my mind that ponders, like, why are we keep going up when people's salaries are going up?
Think of the city like a home budget. Every year, the employees of the city, they get raises. Everybody gets raises. The majority of city budget goes to personnel. And
really?
Yes. Most places, that's what their budget is. The majority of your budget is in salaries, in healthcare, which goes up leaps and bounds. all of the other benefits in there that you need for like the logger's state retirement, things like that, Social Security taxes. Um, so you have that cost of doing business, and it's your people. Where we struggle is, you know, everybody from the city administrator down is so far below what everybody else is paying in regionally that we have a hard time keeping employees. And so we're always in that training.
Because you're a small town.
We're always hiring cops. The fire district struggles because, so the example I use is I never could understand how athletes got paid so much money. How does a person worth millions of dollars? And paramedics in the metro were making about $50,000 a year, and Kansas City came out and wanted to be able to bring more medics in, and they started paying their paramedics $80,000 a year. If you don't want to lose all your personnel, now you have to raise. We've done better with our police officers, getting them at least somewhat competitive in the area, but we're always going to have that influx of officers because we just can't pay officers $60,000 a year, $70,000 to be a street officer. Can't afford it. Public works. So, you know, being able to work on parks, being able to work on the water line. So our public works people, I would love to be able to put on 3 more public works people to help, but can't afford it unless we raise people's taxes.
Right.
And so we said, people are already paying a lot in taxes. And, you know, public works, they work on sewer, water, they work on streets. In the wintertime, they're also plowing. And, you know, our parks people help out with that. Being able to have parks people to maintain all the things we have and to have nicer things for the community and have nicer parks as we are getting, new sports complex. We have to be able to have people to work those. So, you know, one of the things that it's a very hard thing to pass is, and we tried on the last ballot,
yeah?
Use tax.
A use tax.
Yep.
Yeah.
What use tax is so Wayfair versus, it was a Supreme Court thing and said that taxing jurisdictions should be able to charge for online purchases.
Right.
Because we have become an online society.
Don't you do that already?
No.
Oh, I thought that was already in play.
It is for the state and the county.
But not the city.
Nope. It has to be approved by the voters.
Oh.
To collect the tax that if they were buying it from a brick and mortar.
Right. Because
it's not a new tax.
Then that's why you're going up, because you're losing retail.
So not only that,
that answers our question.
You think about all of the FedEx, Amazon, and UPS trucks that you see in residential neighborhoods and driving our streets. They are tearing up the infrastructure. They're causing potholes, wear and tear on the road.
I never thought of that.
And guess what? We get zero money for that. Zero. So that's one of the reasons that we've pushed for it, but it's hard for cities to pass that use tax. But, you know, just collecting that use tax would probably add $500,000 into this community.
No way. Really?
Yes. Oh. You think about all of the online stuff being bought.
Well, I never thought, though, of the trucks running around on the roads and deteriorating the roads. I mean, that is an issue. And if we went and bought the thing ourselves, we'd have to pay anyway.
Right.
So what was the pushback?
Because it's a tax, and people are like, but it's a new tax. It's not a new tax. It's just the tax you would be paying if you weren't buying online.
Yeah.
If you were buying it in town. But I mean, I get it. If people can save money, I understand wanting to save money. I mean, it's just like people, like I said, really support not having personal property tax or not having an income tax. One of the things they've talked about is not paying taxes on groceries.
I would rather have a use tax and lower the sales tax than the other way around. I feel like I feel like that there would be more power in the buying power. Like I could say I could buy less, right, and save money when I need it. And those that didn't need to save money could go ahead and spend the money. But at least for the poor, You know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of just having a 9% tax on, especially cars. That's
So
a killer, man.
You're you're talking about 2 cents on, that you're spending
Mm-hmm.
with that 2.75%. And
Mm-hmm.
I figured it up at one time, and I think I would have paid less because I buy a lot of stuff online.
Do you really,
Yes,
John?
I do.
Uh-oh.
I do. I buy a lot of stuff online. Because I don't like traveling out and going to Blue Springs and Lee Summit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think I would have paid like $2,000 last year in tax had we had that. But I've done online shopping where I've shopped sales taxes too.
I don't think I'd be paying $2,000. We're at Home Depot too much. So we're actually paying it all there.
Yeah,
So
you're paying on theirs.
we've tried to use the local when we can, when they have it.
I send a letter or an email to Menards about once every 3 or 4 months that they should build here.
Hey.
And I wouldn't have to go to Lee Summit or Blue Springs.
Yeah, Menards, Home Depot, Lowe's or something.
Well, again, so when you start talking about like Lowe's, Walmart, Home Depot, big stores
Not
like
Walmart.
that.
Not Walmart.
I know, but when you talk about those kind of places,
Yeah.
you have to show them that they would get new business.
Mm.
And to build here, it's not any new business. You're just stealing business from their other stores. So that's where they talk.
Oh, I see what you're, okay.
They want you to be able to show that you can.
Okay.
That's why we're not going to get big box.
Because we're too close to Home Depot and Lowe's.
Right.
I
And
can
you have to be able
understand.
to show it a new market.
And okay.
With Menards, that is, because there's not a lot.
So
of
it'd just
those.
be convenient for us.
Yes.
So Second Street. I'm looking. Okay. Well, what has been the largest obstacles of being a mayor?
As in what?
I don't know. Give me an obstacle.
Um,
You want to do this. You must have wanted to be a mayor for some vision that you've had. This is what I want to
I
do.
always liked politics,
Seriously?
but I didn't like politics.
Yeah.
I like being able to. I've literally spent my entire career in some level of government.
Uh-huh.
When I left my parents' house in 1987 for boot camp to join the military, I went right into government after that.
Okay, so
As a
you've never
paramedic
owned your own business? Ah,
I went right from the military into being a firefighter
okay.
and a paramedic.
So you've been employed by the government all your life.
Yes, that's all I knew.
Oh, is that hard though, not knowing what it's like to be on the other side?
I don't know if it's hard. I don't
understand.
know anything about private sector stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it as well as I do government kind of things.
Uh-huh.
I've always had, a government entity. I work for a fire district. We have a board. Military, you have bosses and it's just the structure I've always been in. I have a degree in administration, and there were things about business accounting that it just didn't make sense to me because it's always government. People ask me all the time, they're like, hey, at the fire department, when you got promoted, did you ask for a raise? And I'm like, no, I took the promotion and they said, this is what I get paid. That's how it works, because you have unions.
Oh.
Everything's structured. There's pay scales. There's this.
Yeah.
That is something that I have had to learn in local government.
Yeah.
It's not a fire department. It's a little different.
Is it?
You don't have you have a organizational structure.
Yeah.
But you don't have a command structure like you have at a fire department.
Yeah.
And a military structure.
Like the police is like that too.
Right. So at City Hall, we have people that do maybe 2 different jobs, one person doing 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Or they're in charge of this, but they also help in this.
Yeah.
And
it is like a business. Actually, it is. I think a city is a business. It's an entity. It's a corporation. And
it is.
Yeah. It's
you're just not making a profit.
Yeah. You're
just
trying not to.
You're trying not to make a profit. You're also trying not to be broke.
Yeah. But you have it all. You have marketing, advertising in your budget too, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to run it like a business. Otherwise you're going to go broke.
Yes. And we're always trying to
afford
find ways we can't. So,
right.
we talk about, is there ways to freeze the base rate on water for people that are retired.
Hmm.
Or, we have people ask us, hey, can you have a program where underprivileged kids may not have to pay to play recreation sports?
Hmm.
The problem with that, and I really have supported a lot of trying to find ways to do that, is somebody has to pay for it.
I would say let's find some sponsors.
Right. For
Maybe.
that, I say civic organizations and
Yeah.
that. But the water bill thing is somebody has to pay that.
Right.
And now you're asking other people to pay it.
Right.
And, we get a lot of people that say, I don't think it's fair that I have to pay for their water bill.
Right.
And so that's the things we have to work on both sides
You
of.
could take donations.
Right. And there are other programs out
You
there to
know.
help people.
I mean, the city can. You just have a check the box if you want to. They do if you want to add $5 to your bill to
To help people.
to help people. You could do that. I think a lot of people would do that.
And I think that's one of the areas that I think that the city has kind of struggled with, not as a city organization, but as a community, is our median income is almost $90,000 a year in this community. We also have 5.7% of the population that's at or below the poverty level. I don't think we have as much middle class as we used to. We have people making a lot of money and we have people not making a lot of money. And we don't have as much of that middle class as we used to, I think. And so when it raises what the median income is, you start seeing where now you have the value of a house is now $270,000 to $300,000.
It's crazy in Pleasant Hill.
Yes. And it's what people
And there's
are paying.
there's no houses really. I mean, there's not very many.
So one of the problems there that they're working on the state level is you have corporations that are literally buying houses.
Yeah.
Sight unseen.
Yep.
The house goes on the market. They're asking $300,000. We'll pay you $325,000.
Yeah. And that'll take down your community.
Yeah. And that's
Because they're not
something
keeping
on the state
they're
level.
not keeping up those houses.
And there's corporations out there that own almost 1,200 houses in Cass County.
Oh.
Yeah. And rent is almost $1,200.
Yeah.
And it's trying to
And that's that
find
way
ways to
everywhere
manage.
too.
Right. It is, but it's trying to find that of affordable housing is a hard thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that maybe want to build a duplex community or this, and everybody's always for it as long as it's not in their neighborhood.
Yep.
We need rental houses, we need duplexes, we need townhouses. I just don't want them in my neighborhood.
Or, when we lived on the East Coast when I was 12, we had a condo and they had townhouses, but you owned it.
Right.
And I think that it was a very nice community. We even had like a pool and all of that. I had a paper route there. It was really kind of cool. It was like a small town in and of itself. But a condo where you're owning it, I always thought that was more the way to go than renting. Because if you just had all these big buildings of rentals, well, that means you have a big machine trying to save a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. And then they're not fixing things up or keeping it
Right.
up. But a condo, most people want to keep up their own property. Not everybody, but most people would.
I think the issue we run into with that too is we have a generation now that doesn't want to own. They just want to rent.
Yeah. I think the generation behind it's not that way though.
No. But
I think Z is ownership. I think millennial is not.
Yeah. We just have we have a generation, I think, that is more interested in rental housing and apartments. And, that's just something we're going to have to contend with.
Well, and it's hard to find a house or a job.
It is.
Might be a little bit of the reason why is because, you have minimalists.
Yes.
Minimalists. I want to say that word. Yeah, where they don't want. I have a daughter who's 28. I think 28, and they don't want things. Very minimum.
Right.
And then her sister, 6 years behind her, it's like, no, everything.
Everything.
They want everything. But one last question.
Okay.
One last question. Are you going to run again?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay.
I really want to
He answered.
Yeah, there's other things I want to be able to accomplish. so many projects we have working right now. We're looking for someone. We're going to be putting it out there for naming rights to build an arena put in all new bleachers at
Yep, I
the
saw that.
fairgrounds.
Saw
We're
that.
doing this. We're starting with the south side.
Yeah.
But we're going to ask to see if someone would do naming rights to complete the project around the north side.
Okay.
And build a new building out there.
Okay.
That building is in such bad shape.
Yeah.
We have a project I just can't talk about yet.
Oh, cliffhanger.
I know. I just can't. But I think that if it were to happen, will help downtown.
Okay. Oh, I know what project you're talking about.
So
okay.
We have.
I know.
So Price Chopper is important, and getting those pad sites, which they're very motivated to fill, is important because if we want economic development, when a potential business owner drives into town, 7 Highway's their first impression.
Well, 7 Highway's is kind of a drive-through. We're a drive-through town.
Right.
I hate to say that.
That's their impression.
We are right now.
And having a business project like the Price Chopper one will entice people. Oh, it's a growing community. I'm willing to invest. Yeah. And that's important. And I think that all of those things will help.
Hopefully we'll have some good, businesses in there that will attract people even from the outskirts.
Right.
Kingsville, Strasburg.
And so all those things happen. And as we found, you have to have money to make money.
Yep.
That was one of the things with the general obligation bonds is having money there that you can go for grants that were only eligible if you have the money to work on the project. Because too many times they give grants out and then cities can't, or counties, whatever, can't complete the project. So you have to have money on the books to say, hey, we can do this. We're just asking for a grant so we can spend that money elsewhere. And my big thing is, and the reason I'm running again is 2026 is a big year. We have a time capsule to open on July 4th of 2026.
Oh, wow, how fun.
Which is also the 150 year for our country.
Wow.
So we are going to do.
You want to be mayor in that year.
Well, we're already planning. We're going to do a big. I want to do a citywide picnic at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
For 4th of July.
Okay.
Bigger fireworks, more fireworks. Last more than 3 minutes.
2026, here we come.
Yeah, and but it's seeing the park stuff, the animal control. We have a police station we need to try to fund at some point.
There's a lot going on.
There is.
There's a lot of money going here and there and everywhere, and it's building.
I think we have some good people.
Do we have enough animal problems to do a big project like that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
It's always got animals in it.
Yeah. I guess that was the first thing that came to my head. It's like, how much of an animal problem do we have,
All you have to do is go to the current animal shelter.
Yeah, I've never been.
Yeah. If you go there, you'll be like, oh, yeah, this is money we needed to spend.
Okay.
It's just in bad shape.
I'll have to go visit, yeah.
And,
and the police station definitely needs work.
That's the next big project we need to get.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you.
About a lot of stuff.
Down at the high school field, it's the car shows and rodeos.